guys, welcome back to my channel. A lot has been going on. I think we all know this. I wanted to hop back on YouTube and use my voice, but I've been sitting here trying to think about what I want to film, what I want to talk about, how to talk about topics that need to be talked about, and so it's taken me quite a while, obviously. I wanted to, of course, talk about books, mostly, you know, the books that I want to read in the next coming months. Before I hopped into doing so, I felt like it was necessary for me to touch on what's happening in the world today with the Black Lives Matter movement and just show my support. More than anything, start by apologizing. I know that I have been so ignorant, so uneducated, and for that I'm so sorry. I unknowingly, my whole life, and I feel like a lot of white people feel this way, I've unknowingly surrounded myself with white authors, white artists, white TV shows, everything just very whitewashed. And it's taken me 24 years to realize this, and that I've never actively bought something from a Black-owned business or a Black-owned restaurant or tried to be actively, loudly an ally with the Black community. And for that, I'm ashamed. More than anything, I just have been so ignorant, and this has been the change that I've needed. I know that it's taken way longer than it has needed to in my life. I don't know if that's how you guys feel if you are a white person, but the past few weeks have really woken me up, and so I've really done a lot of soul searching and delving into the uncomfortable parts of my brain and my life experience, and asking myself why I think the way that I do and why it's never occurred to me to make more of a change in my life and have more diversity in my life. So that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been trying to do. I've been watching a lot of documentaries. I've been reading a lot of articles and stories and people's experiences. There's just so much that I don't know. So there's a lot to delve into. And more than ever, we need to be active, loud, anti-racist white people. I've been looking into how I can do that better in my community, my family, my friends, on YouTube, how to just be a better friend and an ally. So I just think the legacy that George Floyd will have on this earth is gonna be huge. I have never been prouder to be a part of this generation, and we're gonna change the world, and I don't doubt that. It's gonna take a long time and a lot of people's efforts, but I think that this is just the beginning. This is the start of a new way of life, and to never go back to how we used to live. On the topic of education, what better way to be educated than to read, ladies and gentlemen? So I went to Barnes & Noble. First, I tried going on used bookstores online and looking up some books, but everyone has the same idea as me, and all of them were sold out, or $300. So I'm gonna wait until most of those restock, and then I will purchase those as well. In the meantime, I did go to Barnes & Noble and could only afford to get 2 books. I will talk to you about those. The other books that I'm hoping to read in June and July, it's not that huge of a stack because I have low hopes for how much I'm gonna read, because June and July for me are going to be very busy, but I'm trying to surround myself with more diverse authors and writings and just do better. So I picked up 2 books. The first one I got is Blind Spot by Mazrin R. Banaji and Anthony G. Greenwald. This is about the hidden biases of good people. What better way to start off than to go in your own mind and see why you think the way that you do? Because I think that's where change has to happen first before we can go out and change the outside world. Let's start with ourselves, because that's where most of the problems are. So these authors are psychologists, and so they look into our mind and why we grew up. There's a garbage truck. I hope that you can't hear it, but it's really loud. Anyways, they go into everything between age, race, ethnicity, disabilities, Sexualities. Why do we have these thoughts on these groups of people from birth and live our whole lives with the same opinions on them? I think this is going to be like a very challenging book, like actively challenging. And it says like how to outsmart the machine, how to change our minds into thinking other ways than we've been thinking our whole lives. So I think this is like a really good place to start, and I'm very eager to pick this up and get started. So blind spot. The other one I picked up from Barnes & Noble is Barracoon, The Story of the Last Black Cargo. This is by Zora Neale Hurston, who, looking more into this book, she's a really well-known Black author that I have never heard of. So again, educating myself, educate yourself, pick up books that you wouldn't normally pick up. But when I saw this one, the history lover in me really popped off and picked it up right away and just didn't look at another book after I saw this one. So this is really interesting. So in 1927, Hurston traveled to Alabama and interviewed Cujo, what's his last name? Cujo Lewis, who at the time I think was like 86. And he is the last known survivor to have made the transatlantic journey from Africa, be enslaved to America. At the time that that happened, that was illegal for like 50 years in the United States. So he was illegally brought over as a slave. I think this delves into his life, you know, as a kid growing up in Africa, going into slavery and coming over on that ship. So I think this is going to be a really, really important book. I think we all need to read about the history and people's stories. I might pick this one up next for my next read. So interesting to me. So next are two books that I have from Book of the Month. The first one being The Fountains of Silence by Rita Cepeda. This has been on my bookshelf for months. It's really long, so it's been really intimidating, and that's why I haven't picked it up. But now is the time. So this takes place in Madrid, Spain, I think in like the 1950s, during fascist rule of Francisco Franco. And at that time, a lot of tourists were coming over. They were wanting that Spanish sun and summer, but it was a really dark time for these Spanish people. So this follows the journey of Daniel, who's 18 and comes over with his family, and he's like a photographer. And he meets Anna, who lives there, and it tells about their story. I'm sure a lot of people go against their love, if I were to assume. I don't know much about this book. I just know people love it. Ready to read it. The next book I have is a very, very new release. It is The Vanishing Half by Britt, Bennett. Look how beautiful this cover is, first of all. This follows the story of twin sisters who are Black. They run away from home at the age of 16, and then I believe it takes place over like years, I think like the 60s to the 90s. And so it goes back and looks at each of the twins' lives. One lives with her Black daughter in the southern town that they originally ran away from. The other twin passes as white and lives with a white husband and doesn't tell him about her past. And I'm sure this like explores the differences between their lifestyles and the people that they face and how people perceive them and just everything about identity and race. This is very, very necessary right now. So The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. What a beautiful cover. I have 4 more books. They're kind of random. They're mainly books that I know I need to read, and so now is the time. I'm gonna try and stop buying new books and read these. I kind of just totally lied because this is new. I finally picked up The Nightingale by Kristen, Hanna. I read The Great Alone by her and loved it, and so I know people love this one even more. This seems like something I would like a little bit more. This takes place during World War II. It follows 2 sisters that are in France when it's German occupied, and this kind of shows like the woman's side of the war. I'm assuming they try and go against the Nazi regime and fight their own fight. It sounds really cool. No one told me it was this long. Everyone talks about it, and so for some reason I thought it'd be like a shorter book. I don't know why, but she's like 550 pages, so. But I have to read it. My sister's like, Sarah, how have you not read this book yet? So it's time. June and July, I will read this. by the end of July. Promise. Following the World War theme, I have Lovely War by Julie Berry. This follows two couples during World War One, and of course they're kind of like torn apart because of the war. I'm sure you've heard all about it, but it is narrated by Aphrodite, who's the goddess of love, and she's telling this. And I think they like the couples rejoin during like World War II. I'm not quite positive what happens, but that's kind of the gist. And just like how love can outweigh what's going on in the world during all these wars. What a concept. Honestly, just excited about the concept. So Lovely War. These are all so random. Then I have We Are the Weather. Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast by Jonathan Safran Foer. He also wrote Eating Animals, which I have not read yet. This talks about like global warming, climate change, and like the ways that we can help. And I think this is mostly like facts driven, no opinions, strictly fact. I'm hoping. I believe in climate change 100%, and I just want to be more educated on it. So We Are the Weather. Last thing I have to show you. If I do not read this by the end of July, I'm quitting YouTube. I'm throwing away all my books. The Sun and Her Flowers. I am not big into poetry. I think I've read like one poetry book in my life, but I need to be. I just feel like, why haven't I delved into that yet? So this is like a really well-known poet, well-known poetry book. It's been on my shelves for far too long, so I need to read this in June or July. So that is my list of books. Again, I didn't pick that many because I really wanted to take my time with each book, because most of them are like heavier topics that I don't just want to like fly through and just like raise the number of books that I read, you know. So I want to take my time with them. Again, I will leave links about the Black Lives Matter movement and just helpful pages for you guys. If you're interested, you can look below in my bio. Yeah, I hope you guys are doing well, and I am with you, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.